I played all of Automation Empire, slowly, calmly, and without really knowing what I was doing. And over time, a small snowy patch of land, occupied by one confused drone, turned into trains, rockets, and a system that somehow worked. And this is what happened. The game began with a simple mission objective: deliver 30 kilograms of weight in goods in a 3-month period. Sounded simple enough. Then we discovered we had to make money and pay taxes. Nothing quite says relaxing automation game like an accountant gently tapping you on the shoulder. What psycho created a game that needs you to pay taxes? So we started small. We mined some coal. One very busy little drone doing the work of an entire civilization. And almost immediately, I did what every calm, thoughtful planner does. Moved on to building iron before finishing with the coal. Because priorities are flexible when you're confused. We expanded with more drones, more truck stops, more optimism than organisation. Then came our first research base and our first research unlock, the refiner, which felt like progress. Eventually, iron began to refine, step conveyors arrived, and for a brief moment, I felt like I knew what I was doing. With confidence soaring, we built our second factory, refining coal. I got it finished this time, which went smoothly, until I put the wrong transfer tube on. Because in Automation Empire, every pipe fits perfectly, except the correct one. We unlocked the claw train. Sounded very impressive. All the drones were busy, but there were still not enough trucks. So we moved our roads about a bit. We put a big one down, and we built something called a crate maker, which reminded me of Ambassador Malari from Babylon 5, and I've insisted on saying it that exact same way for the entire playthrough. Which is exactly the level of deep strategic thinking you want when running an industrial empire. That reminds me of Malari as well. A great empire! I wish I could sound like him. Anyway, we moved minecart rails to reach our road. We finally told the drones to get to work, and then everything stopped. Why? One little pesky step conveyor holding everything up. There's something comforting about automation problems. They're never dramatic. It's just one tiny machine quietly ruining your life. By now, we were thinking about the future. Changing layouts, planning ahead. Go me. Creating 2 shorter minecart trucks instead of one long one to reduce travel time. Now that's automation thinking. It felt very clever, until I realised I hadn't lined anything up with a silo, so the minecarts weren't filling up. Drones began squabbling over boxes, which I found strangely relatable. We expanded refined iron production, forgot some transfer tubes again, added more mining rigs, and then sudden disaster. Where did all the drones go? They were just gone. No explanation, no goodbye. Were they on a coffee break? In the repair shop? Who knows? They were just gone. So we made some more. At this point, I decided to start digging for gold, because when your logistics collapse, pivot to precious metals. There were several brain fart moments where I forgot words entirely. One day I thought, I may remember how to speak. and become a professional YouTuber? Maybe. We unlocked the claw gate, which I've never used, ever. Not entirely sure what it does. I'm sure it's very useful. We researched our gold. We sold some gold. And we added more drones, because once again, clearly, you need more stuff. Trucks, drones, trains, you name it, more is the answer. Then everything changed. We unlocked the ClawTrack truck loader, and try saying that without your teeth in, which meant we could finally load trucks properly, efficiently, in theory. In practice, we spent a long time faffing about trying to figure out how the damn things worked, and ended up with something messy, inefficient and confusing, but honestly, who needs efficiency? And so it was time to say goodbye to our drone army, which was emotional, mainly because they were still fighting over the boxes when they left. We had an overabundance of gold, a high quality problem indeed. So much gold, in fact, that we needed another road, which meant more trucks. And another road meant more claw loaders and more spaghetti mess. And after wondering for a while why our goods weren't being sold, we realised we forgot the pickup loaders. Brain fart. So our coal was going nowhere. Automation Empire has a way of humbling you. Just when you think you're in charge, you discover nothing is moving. Next, we unlocked combiners. Now, to make combiners work properly, you need remote connectors. And that required a higher weight output, which meant building more factories, so we could unlock the thing that would let us combine the other two things to make the third thing. So we built a new iron and a new coal factory. Now we were planning ahead at this point. We were thinking steel plates would be next. We sold some things we didn't need, and eventually we unlocked the glorious remote connectors, which made combining resources wonderfully simple. That's automation for you. You spend 3 days building something just so you can end up clicking one button. Fabulous. Now we could finally make those steel plates, using the coal and the iron factories we'd prepared earlier for this exact reason, which felt like a rare moment of foresight. We used our remote connectors for the first time, which made combining resources so simple that I almost didn't trust it. We researched the steel plates, cleared roads to make way for the next unlock: trains. We unlocked water, which boosted the production of our factories, and immediately forgot another transfer tube, of course, because consistency matters. We cleared out all of the old roads, and we began producing gold fuel, more commonly known as gold sludge, which sounds dramatic, but in reality it's just another quiet factory churning out some little golden goop. At this point, things started to get sophisticated. We siphoned off some gold, combined it with refined iron, and built our first capacitor factory. It felt impressive, because capacitors weighed a lot. Although I wasn't entirely convinced that storing capacitors loosely in a large metal silo was the safest delivery choice, but as long as we got paid, safety is optional. After rearranging half the minecart network again, we shipped capacitors to its own little train. Because nothing says efficient design like rebuilding your rail system every single episode. We had another oops moment when we realised our train silos were still full of iron and wouldn't take the capacitors, but small details. So we rebuilt them again. Automation has a way of gently reminding you that you didn't think things through properly. We then moved on to ionized capacitors. They were even heavier, which wonderfully was just a simple refinement of the original ones. Nice and straightforward. And suddenly our calm, snowy factory was glowing neon green and looked a tad radioactive. Thankfully, it wasn't. We built another train station because trains were now our favourite thing. And finally, we hit the weight output needed to unlock oil, which felt like a big moment, quietly big, like discovering your little workshop now has a petrol station attached. So we researched ionized capacitors and started drilling for oil. 2 oil refining factories went down, utilising every oil node on the map, some for research, some for selling. It all felt very grown up. Then we unlocked farms, which I was excited about because nothing pairs better with heavy industry than agriculture. We grew red grass and we grew green grass. Combined them into grain meal, except we didn't because we discovered that actually first you have to refine the grass into grain and then combine the grains to make the meal grain. But again, small details. The grain meal research began, which was strangely satisfying, watching plants grow quietly while trains thundered past carrying glowing green capacitors. A very peaceful industrial ecosystem. Once grain meal research was finished, we realised something important. The grain meal was not worth selling. It hardly weighed anything at all, far too much effort, so we scrapped it. Felt very mature. Then we unlocked the greenhouse, which increases growth speed. So at this point we jiggled all our farms because we only needed the red grass to turn into red grain. And rebuilding things is our true hobby, I guess. We reconfigured the grain factory itself now to refine the red grass into red grain and then combine it with the oil to produce ethanol, which worked beautifully. We immediately began ethanol research and started to pre-build a new factory for mega fuel, which would utilise the ethanol after research had been completed. It would also need the gold slop. So we diverted gold slop away from the trains and brought it into the mega fuel factory. We then had another oops moment and wondered why our mega fuel factory was producing ash. Apparently mega fuel needed water connected to the factory. That was a first. So we connected the water. Research switched from ethanol to mega fuel, and what do you know, we unlocked rockets. Now rockets were a big thing because they give a huge weight bonus when selling. So our calm little project was going to end in space. Elon Musk, eat your heart out. Rockets arrived and we had absolutely no idea how to load them. They needed crates. After several trials and several errors, we figured out one of the best ways to get crates inside, or so I thought. We started sending ionized capacitors into our first rockets because the mega fuel was still being researched and wasn't quite ready. We then tried one setup and then another. We brought in drones because I couldn't face doing claw tracks again, and immediately remembered how inefficient they are. They squabbled, they hovered, they politely argued over the same crate, while the rocket was just waiting patiently. Eventually, the mega fuel research finished, and so we added mega fuel to our growing line of rockets, and discovered the rockets weren't filling up. It appeared that making sure your loading station is facing in the right direction is quite helpful, which is the most automation empire problem imaginable. Everything works perfectly if you point it in the right way. We unlocked monorails, which sadly appeared to be bugged, so we just ignored them. We then had to accept our drone inefficiency and we had to face up to the need for claw track loaders. Deep joy. And because calm systems still need decisive upgrades, we've reorganised everything again. We gave each rocket its own crate maker, its own loader and its own little support network. And finally we hit the first major goal. 30,000 kilograms in a 3-month period, which felt enormous. No fireworks, just numbers gently climbing, but the end was now in sight. We were now aiming for that final medallion goal of 45,000 kilograms. So I kept tinkering. I adjusted trains, I rerouted outputs, I added more rockets, watching the system breathe, cursing a bit, tinkering some more, cursing again, but eventually, after endless small adjustments, we hit the medallion goal. 45,000 kilograms in a 3-month period. We were done. We'd earned $220 million. We'd paid our taxes like a good little TwoFrog, and we'd played for 28 years in-game. It felt a little bit like that outside of game as well, but in fact it was probably only around 30 hours or so in real life. I'm not entirely sure. And somehow, our snowy little patch of land with one busy drone had become a working automation empire. Thank you for spending a little time here, and I'll see you next time on the lily pad.